check the score. Beforehand. 14-9 halftime.
Put this in just to be safe.
Just waiting for this to come in. Okay, come on. Will you please rise and join me in a pledge to our flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let the record show that all board members are present and accounted for, the exception of trustee Devine. In terms of action taken in closed session, the board voted to approve one special education due process hearing settlement with trustees Deleuze, Barnes, Hamilton, Stark, and Cardona voting in the affirmative, no one voting in the negative. I'll read that one more time. In closed session, the board voted to approve one special education due process hearing settlement with trustees Deleuze, trustee Barnes, trustee Hamilton Stark, and trustee Cardona voting in the affirmative. And then at this moment, I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. We'll now move on to public comment. Members of the public may address the Board of Trustees regarding any special board meeting agenda item during the board consideration of that item. Please note that if you wish to address the Board of Trustees on an agenda item, you should do so when that specific item is called. In order to speak, we would ask that in person, to comment in person, you fill out a request to be heard card and you give it to the board assistant. Your name will be called during the public comment agenda on the agenda item or during specified agenda item. Comments are limited to 2 minutes. If you wish to comment online via Assembly Gamut meetings, enter your name and email address, and the board assistant will provide your comment to the board. And then finally, if you're watching via YouTube and wish to comment via YouTube, please do so in the live chat, and the board assistant will share your comment with the board as appropriate. At this time, this is an opportunity for individuals to address the board on items that are not on the agenda. Please note that because it is not an agendized item, we are not able to comment on it, but that we are paying attention and that we will do our best to try and resolve whatever your issue is at the appropriate time. At that moment, is there anyone who'd like to address the board on an item that is not on the agenda? You don't see anyone present? Anyone online? Okay, then we'll go ahead and we'll move forward to reports, and we'll start with the Robla Education Foundation.
Did you turn it on? After I got counsel to come up here and use this, and you don't turn it on? There will be a penalty for that. As you guys can tell, I was counseled at the last meeting. I took the counseling well, and here I am. Anyways, we haven't been doing that much, but I am going to make a request of the superintendent that at the next cabinet meeting, if you may address the principals and have them solicit amongst their staff at their staff meetings that, hey, we have funding that we can do matching grants, a matching grant up to $500 so they can provide their classes with extracurricular activities. Maybe it'll give them the opportunity, maybe the district's funding them for 3 field trips. This will give them the opportunity, maybe fund 4 field trips. So it's a matter of getting the word out to the sites, and maybe if I involve the principals and the district staff, that maybe we'll get more response. Because the big thing is, and I've talked to people over here at Robla today, the people that work in the booth, and so getting them to say, hey, just because you worked in the booth, so please take advantage of the situation, and the rest of them can too. So far we've had about 3 grants. One I got to still cut the check on, but we should have more. Okay, that is all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a report from the Robla Teachers Association? From CSEA? We'll move on to a superintendent's report.
Good evening. Just a couple of things. Last week I attended Glenwood's Parent Night. The topic was attendance and PBIS. Really great presentation facilitated by Dr. Rodriguez and Ms. Tran. Parents left with strategies to support their students, so it was great. And then last night I was at Robla, who had their first SCOE family night. So the evening introduced parents to opportunities that were offered through our SCOE mental health team that's on site. They also had Del Paso Library representative there to give out free books and share strategies on how to engage your students when they're reading. So that was really good. Maine and Taylor had their lunchtime concerts this week. It was really good. I'm super excited. The next concert, there's my notes, is on actually tomorrow, Friday, at Robla Elementary. So I know, Trustee Cordona was there with me dancing a little bit, so the kids really, really enjoyed the concert. Our Latin Heritage Parent Empowerment Dinner is next Thursday, October 3rd at Main Avenue. I need to do a public service announcement to anyone that's listening online. If you haven't submitted your educational benefits form, please do so, right? We recognize that there was a little glitch, but we have just a few, maybe a little over 100 to complete. So if you've received an email or a text, please go online and complete it. And if you can't do it online, we will have staff available tomorrow as well as next week to assist you. This Saturday is the Robla Family Festival at Taylor Street. And finally, our first attendance challenge is underway. And as of yesterday, Bell Avenue is our leader. That's the end of my report.
Okay. All right, now we'll move on to board member reports. Trustee Cardona?
Well, I don't have nothing to report.
Okay. Trustee Hamilton Stark?
Nothing to report.
Trustee Barnes?
Nothing to report.
And I have nothing to report. Moving right along, we'll now move on to presentations and information. We will start with the 2023-24 CASP results update.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Chen, and audience members. I'm Mario Penman, the Director of Curriculum and Assessment. I'm here to give you a little bit of an update for your CASP years 22, 23, and 24. CASP data presentation objectives. I'm going to go over the glossary of terms, student score reports, 2024 district schools comparison, district and schools 3-year comparisons by subject, grade level, cohorts, and by student groups. Glossary of terms for CASP, ELA, EL, and SWD, SED are here for you to reference as we go through the presentation if you need so. Here's an example of a new student score report that the families receive. These are new. They're more robust with information for our families. They have a big summary of what the CASP is, the levels, and all the years of tested areas in the English language arts, math, and science for all of the families to look at. So let's take a look at the school comparisons. We see in the area of ELA, which is green, Bell Avenue was the highest, and everyone else was on or near 25%. In the area of math, which is blue, Bell was the highest, Robla and Taylor in the middle, and Glenwood and Maine with a decrease in math. In science, which is orange, Bell was the highest, with Robla and the others ranging from 16 to 19%. As I did last year, I'm going to let you look at it for a couple seconds before I go on to the next slide. Looking at a 3-year comparison in Robla District, as you can see, they have been very similar scores since we started testing back in 2022. This slide gives us a breakdown of where our students are in the levels 1, 2, 3, and 4 the last 3 years. As you can also see here, the levels are pretty similar throughout the years. Of course, we want more blue and greens and less of the orange. In the area of math, you can also see that there is not too much change in the levels here as well. Within our district grade levels, we can see a 3-year comparison here. In ELA, it tends to follow the trend of close scores with a little dip in most grade levels in 2024. In math, we see the highest scores in 3rd grade and 6th grade over time. Looking at grade level cohorts, we see in ELA that our current 6th graders, which is on the left side, went upwards in ELA and downwards in math. Our now 7th graders in ELA was an upward trend, and in math they went up and down and back up again. Looking at Robla District student groups, our highlights are Asian at the high of 30%, African American with a 6% jump, and students with disabilities with a 2% move upwards. Taking a look at our math student groups, our highlights are Asian at 30% with African American, socioeconomically disadvantaged, and students with disabilities show gains. In the area of science, highlights are the Asian, Hispanic, and white as the highs, and also gains from socioeconomically disadvantaged and students with disabilities. Now we will take a brief look at how our Robla schools did overall in ELA, math, and science the past 3 years. Starting with Bell Avenue. We see an increase in ELA with 5%, a 3% gain in math, and a 21% gain in science. Looking at cohorts, their current 6th graders trended up over time, as well as their math. Now 7th graders show that they started up high and then went down to 25% and stayed there for 2 years. In the area of math, they started at 29%, went down, and went back up again. Here's a look of student groups in ELA for Bell Avenue. The highlights or trends are Asian, Hispanic, and students socioeconomically disadvantaged. they went upwards. In the area of math, there are also some trends of student groups moving upwards. At Glenwood School, they had a decrease of 5% in ELA, a decrease of 2% in math, and a 3% decrease in science. Looking at current sixth graders and the cohorts, they went up and back down. In math, they stayed fairly consistent. As for the now seventh graders, in ELA, they trended down in the area of ELA, and in math, they started up pretty, well, they started at 20%, went down to 10%, and back up to 18%. Looking at student groups, a highlight was that African American students made a large jump of 19%. In the area of math, scores tended to trend down. At Main Avenue School, there was a decrease of 3% in ELA, a decrease of 4% in math, and a decrease in 5% in science. Looking at cohorts, the sixth graders, ELA trended upwards and downwards in math. The now seventh graders went up and down in ELA and trended downwards in math. Looking at main student groups, you can see overall, each group stayed fairly close to their own scores over time in ELA. In math, overall scores trended downwards over time. At Robla School, there was a small decrease of 1% in ELA, 5% increase in math, and the same score in science. Robla's sixth grade cohorts trended in ELA upwards and in math as well. The now seventh graders trended up in ELA and went down in math and back up again. Looking at student groups, the highlights are African American and Asians as highs and Hispanic and EL trending up. In math, African American, Asian, EL students with disabilities, and students economically disadvantaged all trended up. And lastly, at Taylor School, there was a decrease of 4% in ELA, a decrease of 2% in math, and a decrease of 6% in science. Looking at sixth grade cohorts, they have stayed very close in ELA, and in math, they trended down. For seventh graders now, they trended up in both ELA and in math. Looking at student groups in ELA, highlights are that African American students and students with disabilities went upwards. And in the area of math for student groups, the highlights are a 10% increase with African American students, EL students with 2% increase, and a 9% increase with students with disabilities. And that is it. A lot of data that we could have given you. I think that we went up about 15 slides this year to just give you a better picture of the schools, the cohorts that we were asked for from Board Member Hamilton. And so we hope that we gave you some sense of where we are as a district and schools.
Any comments, questions?
Thank you for putting all this information together. Super helpful. One thing I do have a question is I'm assuming that all of the ethnic groups are included in the numbers for students with disabilities and the low-income students.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
One encouraging trend that I noticed, and with the exception of one school site, scores for our African American students seem to be up across the board. It's a challenge that they're still the lowest, but they're trending in the right direction. That's good to see. I also noticed that pretty much across the board, our scores for our white students had gone down significantly. Any sort of assessment been done? Just, I mean, in terms of across the board, what some of the challenges were, why it appears that across the board our scores tended to be trending down this last year?
We have not gotten to lots of conversations about that. We were putting this presentation together. We're going over results with all the principals and making goals for this coming school year. So those conversations still need to happen. I mean, I have some thoughts about why we're sort of leveled out. Some of it is that we had 11 new teachers last year. That alone in the grades 3 through 6, I was actually worried that our scores were going to go down because of that. So I was like sort of happy that we were at the same level because of 11 new teachers. We've had an escalation of behaviors that disrupts the learning environment here and there. And believe me, I want to forget the pandemic, but the reality is our 5th and 6th graders are the K and 1s from that time zone. So we're still not there with those students coming through. And there's a lot of other variables. I mean, I could go on for days about what has happened and what we should be thinking about in the future. But just know everybody's working hard. We're having lots of conversations about data. And we're always trying to say, let's try to think outside the box now. What we've been doing hasn't been working for us sometimes. So let's try to do some things differently. And I think principals are very receptive to that.
What percentage of students opt out of taking the test?
We were, I think, we were at 98%, so not much. It was, we're always very high here. We push for every child to be tested, and if they're not, we're asking why they're not being tested. Some of it's just families saying, you know what, it's too stressful, their anxiety is too high, or second language students, they don't want them to be tested. But overall, the message here is we test all our children, and we've always been around 98% or more.
What grade levels are tested for science?
At grade level 5.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Let's, Bell has clearly figured something out.
I have done some thinking about that too. They have a very stable staff. Lisa has been doing a great job of, one, being a good leader, and number 2, she has had a stable staff. And with that comes experience and knowing how to, structure your lessons and look at assessments and do all of those things teachers do. She has kept a good base with her, and they're all solid teachers because they've been there for a longevity. And so that kind of keeps their scores at a higher level.
And Bell is a GLAD school.
They're a GLAD school, and they've been a GLAD school for years now, which other schools are getting into.
For people who may be watching, GLAD is?
Guided Language Acquisition and Design.
Got it. All right. Any additional comments or questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. right. Now we're going to have a presentation for expanded learning update, and we're going to start with Sacramento Start.
Good evening. My name is Joyce Winger Johnson. I am the Recreation Superintendent over our START program here that we have at Robla. Oh, this is my clicker. Okay. So START stands for Students Today Receiving Achieving Results for Tomorrow. And so we're dedicated to strengthening our relationships between the schools and the families, offering hands-on enrichment activities and clubs, providing fun, safe enrichment environments for every student enrolled, enhancing and linking learning experiences to the regular school day, and also providing staff that are well trained. Our staff go through various trainings throughout the school year. We do a 1 week training once kind of school ends and we have a transition between school and summer. We really focus on a 1 week training that we do team building, we do CPR, first aid, we contract with CalSAC, which does trainings for our area. They go over behavior, it goes over various different kind of topics that we do. We also, through the school year, we do some online trainings with them. Our city has Acumen, which provides online trainings that our staff go through on a regular basis. And then we also do our CalSAC trainings throughout the school year, kind of along with our START coordinators do individual site trainings. So kind of we encompass our day around, right, all of these great things and relationships and an environment that our kids are going to strive for. Our program is funded by 2 resources. One is our ACES grant. The City of Sacramento is the ACES grant holder through the Department of Education. And then our other stream of funding is ELOP through Robla. This extra funding allows us to provide our intercession camps during spring break and during the summer. It also allows us to increase our numbers from our ACES grant, trying to achieve a maximum enrollment that we can of 200 at each site. So those are our 2 stream of our funding sources. Currently, these are August numbers, and October will hit our peak of kind of where we'll kind of see. So this is still kind of figuring out where we are in terms of our numbers. Our ACES numbers, we try to keep at 103 of enrolled, and then it balances. We have to have an 83 daily average for our ACES grant to meet our maximum funding. And then our ELOP numbers are above and beyond that. So as we kind of enroll students, we kind of even out where we are in terms of our ACES and ELOP numbers at the site. Our daily curriculum, when the students come in, we provide supper for them. We do homework time every day. Students have their Chromebooks. We do help with our staff of making sure that they get their homework in. We have enrichment providers. This year we have 5 enrichment contractors that we have supported through our ELOP funding. Little Scholars, they do, each site gets to kind of pick, but Little Scholars is doing like building, STEAM type enrichment activities. Alivo is our sports. They come in 3 days a week and they do sports kind of SEL curriculum with our students. Our Next Floor, they do a couple different things. They do our karate martial arts program. So these are our young kids that were doing karate martial arts. The little girl on the floor, I could not get a picture without her like rolling around. So this is like the true kind of craziness that Sensei deals with, but he's super good. And they also do Zumba at our sites. We have iCook that comes in and they do cooking nutrition mixed in with STEAM on measurement and those kind of facts. We have WorkED. They come in and they do career exploration. So what are you interested in and how do you get there? Like they come up with little companies that they want to work towards. So they make up, I want to become, I don't know, a cook, right? And so then they do this development plan of what does it take to become a cook? Or I want to be an engineer. What does it take to be an engineer? What does that look like for schooling? So we're really trying to get them to think of what their future might look like and how do they get to that and what comes with kind of that career exploration. Food literacy, we work with Robla Unified, and they come in and do food literacy. We do tutoring through the county. We have virtual tutoring program that we do. They do those on their Chromebooks throughout the school year. We do social emotional learning. This plays a big part in making sure that we kind of control any type of insecurities that our students might have, or if we have students that maybe that they're acting out, we want to make sure that it's a great, safe environment for them. So really making sure that, you know, if they are not having good days, we really kind of come back on a strong SEL foundation to making sure that our students that are enrolled, we want to keep them there. We don't want to disenroll students for acting out or having bad behavior. So we really make sure we try to focus on a really strong SEL component for that. We have science, and then our wellness, and then our academic alignment coaches. Our academic alignment coaches at each of the school is a teacher through Robla. They are there to kind of streamline what the school does during the day and bring that into our after school program. So they'll do academic enrichment, they'll do some SEL, they'll go over any kind of connections that we need to make our program kind of one with the school. They do meetings once a month with their site coordinators, and then every other month they meet together as a group to making sure that our outcome at each of the schools has that same focus and enrichment. Our intercession camps, we do the 2-week spring break. This is all under our ELOP funding. And then in summer, we did a 5-week camp. Encompasses field trips kind of to our local area. It includes science, cooking, physical fitness, arts, crafts, games, multicultural SEL, guest speakers. We had somebody come in and bring animals. Farmers market, Joanne worked, she is our program supervisor, worked hard to make sure she had a farmers market. So providing fresh fruits and vegetables. And then we also worked with the food bank and providing food boxes. So during the summer, every week they got fresh fruits and vegetables and an opportunity to have the food box, as long as during the school year they have that as well. And then really important of kind of making new friends. During our spring break and summer camp, we combine school locations. So they are meeting people from other schools, right? Making those connections. That's kind of our quick little rundown of our program, what we do kind of during the school year, what we do during the summer. And so I'm here just to see if you guys have any questions that I can answer for you.
Joyce, part of the board request was also to identify how the program recruits students, yes, as well as disciplinary criteria and any policy of you have that would exclude students. Can you comment on that? Thank you.
We recruit through flyers at the schools. Word of mouth is really big, making sure that we stay a presence on the campus. Our site coordinators work with the school principals to make sure that we have the word out, whether it's in the school newsletter, whether it's flyers, and then it's posted on kind of our school websites and trying to get it on the our City of Sacramento website. And then in terms of the discipline, we do have a discipline policy and procedure. Like I said, we really try to really support that social emotional learning so that we don't disenroll students. I don't have that step by step, but typically it would be if we have a student that's acting out, our site coordinator and our staff really work with them to kind of find out what is the underlying concern that they have, right? There's always something why students are acting out, and really trying to break that down of what that underlying cause is. Working with the AAC and the teacher during the school day to making sure we are on the same path of why those students might be acting out, whatever that discipline or redirection might be, is really key, that we're together in unity of doing those same redirection. Meeting with parents, and then if we're still having those continual issues, is we might talk about maybe this program isn't the right fit for them, but we haven't had that this year.
What's your exclusion policy in terms of what students do you not take into your program?
We don't have an exclusion policy. So Title II is on our registration form. So if they have needs that they need to make or need to meet, that is something that we do. We have an inclusion specialist with the City of Sacramento. So if they mark Title II on that, we'll meet with her, kind of find out what are some of those needs that the person might have and how can we accommodate those needs. and whether they have an aide during the day. I mean, if they have an aide during the day, can they come over to our program and help with that transition of making, right, that student be able to handle the program?
Can you provide an update on students who are not potty trained? I think earlier in the year there was a concern that students, transitional kindergarten and kindergarten students were not potty trained, were not eligible to enroll. Can you give us an update on that?
Don't have an update on that. I could double check with Joanne. I don't want to speak for her because I wasn't sure what that might be. But typically, I think if a student is coming in, we don't handle inside restroom, right? That's part of the city of Sacramento. That's not one of our allowable things, is to go into a restroom to help somebody. Our staff are not trained. And so that might be if there was an issue with somebody needing assistance in the restroom, we would not be eligible to be doing that.
I have a question. I guess it's for you, Eileen. How many, like, what percentage of our students need after school care on average? Like, are we at the 200 mark? Are there more spaces than there are students? Are there more students than there are spaces?
We definitely have room for more kids to be enrolled.
Yes. So by law, based on our student population, we really should be providing access and opportunities to anybody. So truly the fact that they have space and then Helen has space, we have the opportunity to provide more. We have the opportunity to serve these families who have reached out to us. If there were more, I would be here to either talk to START or any of our vendors if they can increase or bring another vendor. We are not there yet, but I am very mindful that we meet the needs of all our families, whether it's 3 hours. You know, I have some families, I believe START has a couple where you have 2 younger students and then you have a upper grade student, and there's a 40-minute differential of when they get out. So if they just go to one of the programs for 40 minutes, that's okay, because that's what they need. So. Can I just ask one more clarifying question? You mentioned virtual tutoring, right? Who's the company that provides that?
Through the county. It used to be called, can't remember off the top of my head now that you ask me, it used to be called Booknook. And so Booknook changed into, it's through the county, and so we have a contract with them through the county to provide that.
And just to clarify, because this is one of the things that I know was new a few years ago, any individual who's providing tutoring to students in California have to be cleared to provide support in California. Do you know if all of Booknook's teachers are in California?
I believe they go through the county.
Yes, but you can have online tutors that tutor from New York.
I see.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're not sure, can you get that information just to make sure that all the students, all the tutors that provide tutoring to our students are cleared to tutor California students? Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Or just a clarifying is that you mentioned before that all of the folks who are actually in the after school programs working with our kids are trained by the city of Sacramento, and they get continual training after the school year is over and then all throughout the year?
Correct. Yep.
Any additional questions or comments? Thank you so much. All right, next we're going to have expanded learning updates for the Roberts Family Development Center.
All right, good evening. My name is Blake Cudworth. I'm here on behalf of the Roberts Family Development Center for our Freedom Schools summer and after school programs here in the Robla School District. I'll start by talking a bit about the summer program that we had at Robla Elementary this summer, and then move on to the current after school year where we'll be at Taylor Street and where we are currently. So the 2024 Robla Freedom Schools summer program served 147 scholars with 16 servant leader interns and 2 site coordinators, myself and Mr. Orozco, who is in this picture here with our scholars with the state when they got a chance to actually have I believe, state superintendent was there for them to receive awards when it came to educational equity over the summer. So that was awesome. That was our 6th and 7th graders. One of the huge components when it comes to our summer program for Freedom Schools is the integrated reading curriculum, often abbreviated as IRC. And this is something where we get a chance to encourage scholars to find their love of reading outside of an academic sense, but just for the enjoyment of it and the ability to, become a lifelong learner, just, not just in the school day, but throughout the rest of their lives. So we have 6 weeks that we have this Freedom School program, and each week focuses on a theme of I can make a difference, starting in the very local sense of yourself, expanding to your family, your community, your country, your world, and then that last week, how you can make a difference with hope, education, and action. We talk a lot about self-esteem, self-respect, working well with other students, finding our commonalities rather than our differences when it comes to the IRC. And the activities that the scholars do after they read these different stories really give them a chance to explore those things, working in groups of 3 or 4, not just within 1 grade level, but up to 3 grade levels, all working collaboratively. And they get to make life and self-to-text connections when reading these stories. So we have a few of them up here. I'm Every Good Thing, the Teacher Who Has Tattoos, When the Beat Was Born. These are all, stories that some of our scholars may see themselves in the protagonists. And that's something that's huge for us because many of the books that they read during the school year focus on stories that may not really connect to who they are as an individual. And you also see one of our classrooms that was an Under the Sea theme from this summer, highlighted with our younger scholars, kinder through 2nd grade there as well. Another way that we can make a difference and that we want to show the scholars that they can make a difference is through social action. I'm wearing a shirt that we actually had over the summer here today, focusing on the theme of protecting the freedom to read and cutting down on book banning across the country. Here in California, we don't see book bans in the same way that we do across a lot of the rest of the country. However, our staff, and I'll get into training a bit later, but our staff actually traveled to Knoxville, Tennessee for a training before the summer started, which is a state where there's a lot of book banning going on currently. And this really hurts the ability for students to see all different perspectives and to learn about things regardless of race or gender or sexual orientation or religious identity or any of these other things that are protected classes. And so with that over the summer, each week we talked about a different component of book banning, how that, is impacting other communities, who has the decisions to do this in different areas, including school boards in a lot of places as well. And then with that culminated with a bringing together of all of our sites across 4 different school districts in West Sacramento, where there were student speeches, flyers that were made, banners, and a march around a high school campus where the scholars got to really show off what they had learned over the course of the summer. Over every Friday of the Freedom Schools program, we had a field trip to somewhere in the Sacramento community that our scholars may or may not have heard of, but there are great experiences academically and then socially, and the social emotional SEL space as well. We went to the Aerospace Museum, UC Davis, the Oki Pool, which was a swimming pool, Urban Air Bounce House, the Department of Education, and then the National Day of Social Action was at Riverbank High School in West Sacramento. All of these were fantastic opportunities for our scholars to really see something that they may not see every single day. It amazes me when we do these field trips how many scholars haven't seen things that are 5 minutes away from where they live. And so just putting a shine and a highlight on something that they could go check out another time, fantastic. Especially that Aerospace Museum, seeing the kids get into a giant decommissioned plane. It was a really cool experience. Kind of shifting a little bit to the after school space. We are trying really hard this year to, blend what we do over the summer with a traditional after-school setting. And so with that, we are providing academic support, enrichment, and making sure that we have a safe environment for our scholars. While doing that, we're implementing, the things that you have to have in an after-school program. We're going to serve supper every single day. We're going to get homework help for the scholars, but then also implementing things from Freedom Schools. So Harambe. Harambe is a Kiswahili word meaning pull together, and it's a chance for us to sort of have like a pep rally for the scholars, to feed into their confidence, to have them, sing songs and dance with their peers, and to teach themselves our favorite song, Something Inside So Strong, to know that you have something inside of yourself that is meaningful, that is strong, that has value, no matter where you come from, no matter where you are at whatever point in your life you are at. We implement that every Tuesday and Thursday with the scholars. And then we also do our integrated reading curriculum. During the summer, the integrated reading curriculum is over 2 hours. It's very intensive. We can't provide exactly that during the after school day, but we do spend about an hour and 15 minutes each day reading a story and then doing a couple of activities about that story again on Tuesdays and Thursdays, bringing those in. Enrichments are kind of one of the other main parts of the Freedom Schools Day that we call afternoon activities that are brought into the after school space at Taylor, with our different staff members leading things like science, self-care, art, dance, and then we'll be bringing in new topics when we switch to the new calendar year in 2025. Each staff member will bring in a different enrichment, so the scholars have a number of different opportunities of what they get to experience this year. A few other things that we're bringing into the after-school space, field trips. We actually went to the Foothill Skate Inn on Auburn Boulevard today. Just got back from that about 2 hours ago. It was a lot of fun having the kids go roller skating. We are going to actually train our staff to be docents to go to the Sacramento History Museum in Old Sacramento, and they will be guiding a tour for all of our scholars later this school year. We will also be doing things like, since we're at Taylor Street, we have the community park right across the street there. We'll have a couple of walking field trips there. And then we're still deciding what else we can do in 2025 when it comes to field trips. Tutoring as well. We have one staff member with us every single day who is a tutoring specialist. And then we also will be using Sac State students that have connected with our organization who are early childhood or education majors, who are able to come in twice a week, again, focusing on English, ELA, and math when it comes to tutoring. And then Girl Scouts is new to our program this year. Every other Sunday, we will have a 2-hour meeting at our main center for girls that are in the after school program. They would like to also, start to learn about Girl Scouts and the great things that come with that. When it comes to enrolling with the RFDC after school program, if families are interested, they can pick up a form either from myself and our staff at Taylor Street during the after school day, or at our main office at 770 Dorina Avenue across from Grocery Outlet. At this time, we are about at our capacity with a couple of students on our wait list. We have 65 enrolled in the after school program. Our goal for our 90%, the upper echelon of the funding is to have at least 54 students attending daily. Our average so far this school year has been about 60, 61. When a family does want to apply to the program, given that we are on a small wait list at the moment, I will take that application, put it into our system, and then give them a call when their scholar is able to enroll with us with a start date. When it comes to disciplinary procedures for the program, we do not have any restrictions on who can participate in our program, and so all children are welcome as long as they're a Robla School District scholar. It is at Taylor Street, but we do have about 15 scholars from the other 4 schools in the Robla School District enrolled that are K through 6th, and then about 50 of our scholars do come from Taylor Street. When we do see behaviors that do not align with what the program is intending for the scholars day to day, or when children are put in an unsafe position, we have a few steps that we like to follow when it comes to that. We usually will start with something called a think sheet if we see a student having some difficulties, and that is something that they can fill out, which gives them a chance to think through the decisions that they've made, how they were feeling at the moment that they made that decision, how it might have impacted other people, what the next steps are to right any wrongs that might have been done. After that point, if we continue to see those same behaviors, we will contact parents, get them involved, see if they might know what's going on, what might be leading to those behaviors. And typically we will use that as a chance to really bring the family in to the situation so that we know what they would like the next steps to be. We always make cooperation contracts with our scholars both in the summer and during the school year, where as a class, they sit down and they decide what expectations they want to be held to throughout the year. And then they all sign off on that. So it's not, them having rules placed down upon them, but them getting the chance to say, this is how I'm going to show up and make sure that I'm doing what's right for myself and the students around me. And so we will often refer back to that when we see challenges in the classroom or, during common area times. This is the expectation that you agreed to follow to. So how do we make sure that we're going back to following that expectation? If we continue to have challenges after this point, we'll discuss a suspension with the parents. We obviously do not want to have suspensions in the after school space, but especially for things involving violence or, making the space unsafe for others, that is a step that may need to happen after, there have been these previous steps followed. And after, one or more suspensions, if the same behaviors continue, then we will discuss with the family whether the program is right for them and they may be expelled from the program at that point. We have not had that at all this school year. I don't believe we had any last school year either, but that is where we would get to if we got to, continuing to have those challenges after a suspension and being brought back in. When scholars do return to the program from a suspension, if they were to have one, we sit down with them and their parent and discuss what it looks like to re-enter the program safely in a way that they will feel supported and know that they can, not be either looked at differently or blamed for anything when they return, but how they can be successful in that return to the program so that, we don't have that same conversation coming back up later. When it comes to training opportunities for our staff, every staff member that we have this school year at Taylor Street also served as a servant leader intern over the summer at one of our Freedom School sites. They all received a few weeks of Freedom Schools training, both locally here in Sacramento with Saturday and Sunday full-day trainings, and then a 5-day, intensive Ella Baker training in Knoxville, Tennessee, in order to learn the components of Freedom Schools. Along with that, there was a lot of IRC training when we were in Tennessee. We also got stuck in the airport for about 3 days in Tennessee, which was wild. If anyone wants to know about that, I'd be happy to tell you about that later. But they received all of that training over in Tennessee. Then we did some post-trainings when we got back here to make sure that they felt good about the things that don't get covered over there, a little bit more of the social emotional, work, how to connect with parents and families, and just bridging, technological divides and maybe some gaps that we might have with language barriers. Classroom management, leadership training, mentor training, restorative justice training are also things that came about over the summer and then into the school year. When we have the different breaks that come about throughout the school year, we also utilize those times to have further trainings for our staff, along with weekly meetings where we can go over some of the things that are going on in the after school program and how to best support the scholars. Plans for this year, I talked a little bit about some of these already. The Latin Heritage Celebration, we do have the dinner next week, which Superintendent Chen mentioned, which our staff will be working with. We'll be leading some of the child care opportunities for the scholars that do come to that. But on top of that, we also will have a Latin Heritage Celebration at the Roberts Family Development Center on October 12th. Welcome to all families that may or may not be involved in our program. We really want to include all of Northern Sacramento in this opportunity. The Girl Scouts, which I mentioned, is starting the end of this month and going into November, again with 2 days a week where they can come to our main center and learn a little bit more about Girl Scouts. We also do an honor roll for our scholars. So each trimester when they get their grade reports, if they are above 3.0, they get like the first ring of our honor roll, and then a 3.5, I believe, would be the second ring. They don't technically have GPAs in the same way that like middle schoolers or high schoolers might, but we're able to use the scores that we get from the teachers in order to honor them for those honor roll plaques that we'll give out at each of those trimesters. The partnership with the Sacramento History Museum, I did mention as well. I think that's really cool that we were able to do that this year. So they will be training all of our after-school staff over the fall break this year in the history of that museum, the history of Sacramento itself. And as residents, we think that this is really beneficial to our staff, and it will give them a chance to engage the students further, because sometimes when a scholar hears history, they don't want to hear anything else. They're like, I'm good. And so for us, this is a chance to really show them that there's beauty to the history of Sacramento, and there's a long history here. And then there'll be docents for that actual trip, probably in November. And then we'll also be, supporting the African American History Celebration that will happen in February throughout the district, as well as the AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander History Celebration, in May. And then we have monthly parent workshops for our families at Taylor Street, the third Wednesday of each month. That will not be the case next month, as that'll be during our fall break, but typically the third Wednesday of each month, where they'll get, meals distributed. They'll learn a little bit about what's going on in the after school program, as well as other opportunities to really, bring as many resources to themselves and their scholars as possible. That is all. I can take any questions or comments you may have.
I just want to make one comment because you mentioned a waiting list. And I want to be clear, we don't have a waiting list for any of our programs. So it's important that those families on your waiting list, that they are aware that they have choices in the other programs at your site. And if they choose to wait, that's okay. But we need to make sure that we document that there are other programs that can meet their needs until you have an opportunity for space.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask a question about double dipping, because I would assume that a parent could potentially enroll in START and in Roberts Family Development, which would mean that they would take up 2 spots.
We do not have anyone that's enrolled in both programs. I try to work closely with Miss Lily over at Taylor Street to make sure that scholars are getting supported by one program or another to the point of the wait list. We always try to let them know that START may have spaces available. She's told me that they do have up to 200 slots, and I know they're not at that right now. And so for me, it's most important that the scholars who need services get them. So we do share that with them. And that, when it comes to Taylor Street specifically, there are no scholars that are enrolled in both. At the beginning of the year, one family did try to enroll in both, and both of us talked to that parent to let them know that they had both options, and then they chose the one or the other. So we do not have any that are enrolled in both, and we will make sure that if anyone does try to do so, that they get into one program or the other. They both are full day, so we can't, have them actually participate in both and keep the fidelity of the program.
Big fan of Roberts Family Development Center and all the work that you do. The one thing that I did have a question about had to do with the issue of advocacy. And I know that you said you talk about and you encourage advocacy. I'm very concerned about how you go about choosing and deciding what issues you're going to advocate on, what information is provided. And I'm just going to use the example that you used this year where you talked about quote unquote book banning. There's a lot of misinformation and disinformation surrounding that particular topic. And if our kids are encouraged to advocate, I want them to know that there on all issues, there are multiple sides of that issue or different perspectives. My understanding, at least from what I've seen so far, is that that level of objectivity is not provided or not offered in terms of advocacy. And I'm concerned because I want to make sure that our kids aren't being, let's put it this way, if you're given one side and not the other, you're not being educated, you're being indoctrinated. And I want to make sure that that's not taking place with our kids when it comes to advocacy.
Yeah, so each summer, the topic that is covered when it comes to our social action component is decided by the Children's Defense Fund National Organization. They choose a topic that they believe is impacting youth across the country, and they highlight it. They provide, resources on how to speak about these topics in order to shed light on general information. They do their very best to make sure that that is not telling you to do things one way or to do the other, but simply to know that you can make a difference. And so whatever way you see this topic impacting your life, you should fight for how that will make your life better or how to change the way the system is to make your life better if you so feel that it is not the way that aligns with you. When it comes to the way that it was covered for our staff this summer, I do know that we used some of the resources that were brought along by Children's Defense Fund, and then external research as well onto how we saw this impacting Sacramento students. Like we said, book banning isn't happening in the Robla School District or in Sacramento, California. However, what we wanted to focus on was if you think that this is something that you do not appreciate, or if you feel a certain way about book banning in other states, here's how you speak to people from other states. Here's how you get involved in that topic. When it comes to ultimately choosing one direction or another for a scholar, we will never make that decision for them. We also do want families to have the information before the scholars actually learn about it. So at the beginning of the summer, we told all of our families the topic this year is book banning. They were required to attend a meeting where we discussed generally what to expect over the Freedom School's 6 weeks. And they were told during that time, if you may or may not have any qualms with this topic, we are happy to provide you with all of the topics that we will cover before we actually do cover them. And if that's not something you want your child to participate in, you're more than welcome to have them either sit out from that activity and we'll give them something else to do, or to have them not attend during the portion when that's going on.
You know, what I'd like, if you could do me a favor, I'd like to get a copy of the presentation and the information that was provided regarding book banning, because my experience with the Child's Defense Fund is that, no, they definitely are biased. They definitely have a direction, and they don't present the entire picture. So I'd like to see what was presented to parents, because of course they're not going to have an objection if only one side of the information is being provided to them, because they're at that point on that particular issue, they're being indoctrinated just like their kids would be being indoctrinated. I once again, I'm not advocating whether it's an issue that I agree with or an issue that I disagree with. I always want to make sure that we are providing all the information. And that we're not encouraging our students, our scholars, to be advocating with only half of the information.
Certainly, yeah,
Okay.
I can get that to you.
Thank you.
Well, I actually see this as differently. I think I applaud you for taking something that is very timely and something that I think a family can have a discussion about. Whether one side or the other, I don't believe there is taking CDF or so. I don't believe there is any indoctrination going on. So I want to get that clear. But what I think is cool is that you take a topic and you introduce it to a family and you say, whether you are for or against this, that's up to you to decide. But we're going to give you some tools for advocacy. And it seems like you take that and give them those tools, and they can take that and apply it to anything else that they want to do.
Absolutely, and it's a different topic each summer. So last year we talked about gun violence and how that impacts communities. We did environmental justice the year before that. And ultimately with each topic that we cover, we want to make sure that they're not having limited information, but that they're understanding that there are a lot of different places that you can learn about these things, and that what we're going to provide in these 6 weeks is not the end-all be-all, but can be a starting point for you to start to learn more about what you think. When it comes to book banning in particular, that is a direct limitation of information, and so that's why it's something that I believe very deeply is a problem in this country. And so for myself, regardless of this program, I know that's something I advocate for outside of when I'm working.
I'll just give you an example when we talk about misinformation or disinformation. Did you know that 97% of the books that are actually challenged are done so because they contain sexually explicit, non-age appropriate content? That's 93% of the books that are challenged.
I'd love to see that information. I have not seen the particular figures that you're referring to.
I would love to see
I will provide that information for you.
I would love to see that first too, because I think it is very subjective.
Those are the numbers. Well, the top 10 books from the American Library Association, all 10 of them were challenged because they contain sexually explicit content.
Well, with all due respect, the Bible contains sexually explicit.
You can go to the American Library Association's website and check it out. But thank you so much. But hey, by the way, just to say this, this is the reason why I want to make sure they have all the information, because I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to have a robust public discussion about policy. It seems to be the thing that we've gotten away from in today's society. It seems like one side wants to present their side and doesn't want the other side to hear their side, and vice versa. we ought to be able to have conversations about this like this, to be able to bring up this sort of information, be able to bring up the data and have those sorts of conversations. That's how Mr. Barnes and Trustee Barnes and I have become very good friends, because we have very good, very robust conversations about these topics. But in the end, where we may not always have agreement, we do develop understanding of other people's perspectives, and that's what I want our scholars to get out of these discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that all of our scholars deserve to make their own decisions. And while they are still children, and there are some restrictions around exactly what they can do, again, being able to self-advocate and being able to stand up for yourself is something that a lot of them sometimes at home are not encouraged to do. And so we want to just give them that opportunity to understand that regardless of what topic you're talking about, whether it's the stuff we cover this year, or whether it's whatever you become interested in as you get older, fight for what you believe in and don't worry about what other people are telling you.
Amen.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
All right, next we have expanded learning update, Helen Institute.
Good evening, good evening. Get started. I'd like to pass out a book that will be discussed in my presentation. I was not able to attach it to the presentation. Expanded Learning Opportunities Program. Our motto is inspiring the advancement of the human spirit. The Helen Institute is actually a national think tank. What is our mission? Brilliant minds will engage the world-class leaders in a culturally and socially diverse learning environment to develop the intellectual capacities and cognitive skills required to expand learning opportunities. Focus on first mitigating learning loss and then moving to accelerate learning. Our mission is global-minded, bold, and student-centered. We educate students who will one day make decisions that will transform the world. What is expanded learning? Expanded learning means before school, after school, summer, and intersession learning programs that focus on developing the academic, social, emotional, and physical needs and interests of pupils through hands-on engaging learning experiences. It is the intent of the legislature that expanded learning programs are pupil-centered, results-driven, include community partners, and complement but do not replicate learning activities in the regular school day and school year. I put that definition up, and it's directly from California Department of Education. As we go into more of what the Helen program is about, we have built a comprehensive program through our think tank and the fellows who have developed the program that we feel meets the needs to the intent that the legislature developed this grant in the first place. It's a federal grant that was the result of education dilemmas that we discovered during COVID. The first need was learning loss mitigation, and the second need was learning acceleration. Once we mitigated the learning loss, what could we do as a community then to accelerate learning? Because there was a recognition nationally that students had suffered to some degree as a result of COVID and their normal education process been interrupted. This next slide is directly from the California Department of Education as well. And our focus is on that third paragraph, offer and access. And so our contractors are 5th and 6th graders, and we do not deny anyone access to our programs. We also enroll 4th graders if there's a need. During the summer, we even had a 2nd grader because the parent decided that she wanted her 2nd grade student to enjoy the summer camp with her 5th and 6th grade brothers and sisters. So our program does not deny any student access to the LOP program. How does a student get enrolled into the Helen Institute? There are 2 processes. Last year, when we first came on board, the superintendent and the board asked us to be a parallel program with START. So they enrolled directly through START, and then START was transferred fifth and sixth graders to us based on their own criteria. Some of it had to do with capacity. So we became an additional capacity for the program so that the school district could meet the needs required to provide the program to all unduplicated students. This year is a combination. At some sites, they have signed up through START as a parallel program. And then we have also engaged direct enrollment through our own marketing, advertising, our own consent form application process as well. But again, we say no to no students. As we go into the classrooms and introduce ourselves to students and families who are not familiar with us, many students will raise their hand and ask if they can switch programs. And my comment is always, if your parent has decided that this program fits the needs of the family, you should stay in that program. But our answer is not no. Through a conversation with your parents, if they decide otherwise, we're open to all students. But we do not encourage students to switch. It's a decision that we encourage them to have with their parents. And the parents decide that they want to have the students engaged, the academic enrichment programs that we provide, then we make that opportunity available to the families. This summer, we were asked to hold a summer camp for fifth and sixth graders. Again, we did have one second grader, very brilliant second grader, I will add. We had approximately 80 students, fifth and sixth grade. We started the week out with Dilly Dally the Clown every day to get the students all excited. We had snow cones every day throughout the summer. We had athletic programs. Myself and a good friend of mine, Patrick Willis, ex-49er, just was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and a current 49er, Jason Verrett. We developed an athletic program for kids, and that's the program that we implemented over the summer. Jason Verrett's brother, Trey, was the lead instructor for that program that I created along with a group of professional athletes. And so that was on Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays all summer, except for the days where the heat was too extreme. And so we canceled the programs. If we all remember, the month of July was pretty hot temperature-wise. So there was 1 week we did not do anything outside except for early in the morning when the temperature allowed. We also had a focus on classroom instruction around writing. And one of the key parts of our program is writing. Our students write every single day, whether it's a summer program or the after-school program. We know that writing impacts the entire curriculum. As students get older and get into middle school, we know that students struggle with math because many of the math problems, you have to read it first. One of the things that the superintendent asked me to do when I was asked to bring forth this program was also engage the students in middle school transition. And so because of that piece, part of our program focuses on what writing will look like in middle school, how to stand up and present what you have written. So they do that daily. We teach them public speaking skills, confidence in their writing. Some of the kids, even though they're fifth and sixth graders, they struggle with 4 and 5 letter words. One of the ways we help them do that is with the game Scrabble. We have games that they play for fun, but it also teaches them something else, a social skill, an emotional skill, or a skill that we see that they may be lacking academically. So Scrabble is used for those students who struggle to spell 4 and 5 letter words. You know, the words like went, there, they spell a variety of ways. And we've learned over time that the reason why students typically can't spell 4 and 5 letter words if they just don't read enough. They don't see the word often enough. And so by helping them write, they're not only writing what they're going to read, but they have to practice it. So now that they know that they're going to have to get up and read it, they take the writing exercise more seriously. And it's interesting. You have some phenomenal students in this district. Many of them are just excited about the writing. Their stories are elaborate, very imaginative. There's a sixth grader now at Bell. Is one of the most phenomenal writers of her age I have ever met. I've been writing my entire adult life. I'm a publisher, and we'll get into the book later that's in front of you. And she was writing everything down on just notebooks. And so the program purchased her a computer so that she could use it at home to start to write. And I encouraged her with her writing. The entire team did, and we're hoping that at some point we see her published. And I've encouraged her to seek me out if she decides to publish. I spoke with her parents. And so you have that kind of talent in the district that when we see it, we encourage it and we enhance it and we do what we can to encourage them to do more. The program also focused on STEM. We did an introduction to drones, and we did projects with Legos. Here's what's interesting about the Legos projects. While we have 5th and 6th graders, again, it's about learning loss mitigation, learning acceleration. So how much brain activity can we create in the student mind? And so Legos sets they have our age recommendation. And the sets that I purchased for the program were for 18 and older. So let's see how the 5th and 6th graders are going to do. And the first one we did was a very intricate Star Wars project. It was 6 of them, excited, just brilliant students you have in the district. It took them 3 weeks, but they did it. And one day Miss Chin came to the camp, and they were just so excited to show her how it was not just a Lego set, it was also robotic as well. And they went through the process of showing her everything that the project did. And it did something for us, because I did not know how they would respond at that age to those type of sophisticated projects. As a result, we have carried it on into the after-school programs. To give you an example, there's a student at Robla who struggles academically. I gave him the same sophisticated, challenging, 18-plus age group Lego set. He did it in 3 days. 6 of them, it took him 3 weeks. This kid who struggles academically has demonstrated when given the right activities, there's a part of his brain that excels at other things. And that's the goals of our program, to find out what else do kids excel at. As a result, we've had a conversation with the superintendent and also with Mr. Weeks, who's in charge of the science programs, about how do we do a more comprehensive STEM program for the district. And there's arts and crafts, sports all summer. And we all know that during the summer, all meals were served by the district. That's our summer program. Our after-school program is a mirror of that, with the exception of we focus on teaching the kids 19 habits. Those 19 habits comes from the book in front of you that I wrote and published a few years ago. So for an example, the first habit is amazing. You wake up every day and tell yourself, I'm going to have an amazing day. I'm going to have an amazing week. I'm going to have an amazing month, an amazing year. And like a plant that grows toward the light, when you tell yourself that you're going to have an amazing day, you grow toward that light. So you may ask, how do we teach 5th and 6th graders that habit? We have them right now, if you go to any of the sites, they're doing their vision boards. The vision boards are divided up into 6 sections. What's your dream job, dream house, dream car, dream college, dream vacation, and we have them find cutouts and they create their vision boards. It's amazing to see 5th and 6th graders think about, what do I want to be when I grow up? And we have them build vision boards, and they take them home, so every day they can look at that vision board and say, I'm going to have an amazing day. And we remind them that to have an amazing day at school, it starts with having done your homework, having gotten proper amount of rest, being prepared for school. So your amazing day at school starts with, did you do your homework? which is one thing we also help them with in after school program. We help them with their homework as well. All the other things we do mirror the summer program. And right now we're under contract for 40 students at each site. Maine, we're close to 40. Some schools, enrollment is not impacted. We're going into the school classrooms now, having personal conversation with the students, giving them the consent forms, and our goal is to reach enrollment of 200 for the school district within our program. Next is our disciplinary policy. Students and parents have to agree to a code of conduct. That's a consent form. There's some rules and policies they have to follow. It's in alignment with the rules and policies of the district. When students repeatedly violate those policies, there's a process in which the students is asked to make sure the parent contacts us. We make an attempt to contact the parents. And we have a conversation with the parents. We partner with the parents. We tell the parents what the needs are, what the issues are, so that the students can remain in the program. We don't have a policy where students are put out of our program. But if there is repetitive violations of the codes, the agreements, then there is a conversation with the parents that if you intend for your students to remain in this program, we need your assistance. They need to follow the rules. And so there's a constant open door policy, open communication between us and the parents to make sure that the kids are getting what they need. Mm-hmm. The future of the program. We talked about STEM. And I apologize. I did not get to show it, but this is actually one of the STEM projects. So I dropped it. But there's two young students at Bell. It took them maybe about 3 weeks. It's over 2,000 pieces. These kids love these projects. And so this is something that we're going to continue on. And there may be a need to discuss how do we further STEM projects and after school and summer program in the district. For some of these kids, I think they need this because, or they may not be excelling in other parts of academics. We know that they excel in STEM. Next thing we need to do is increase student enrollment. So right now we're engaged in direct parent contact. We're planning a parent event to showcase after-school programs. We're partnering with the district staff to increase the effectiveness of programs. I mentioned Mr. Weeks earlier. Mr. Weeks, he and I met because I knew that he has some concerns he wanted to communicate with me concerning the program. We spoke for about 3 hours one day, very robust conversation. He has agreed to assist in the ways that his skill set lends, especially with the STEM parts. And there are other parts of the program where we feel that some of our staff receive a minimum of 30 hours of training a year. But there's some other training in terms of classroom management, the skills that Mr. Weeks and some of the other members of the district has. In most school districts, we have teachers, certificated staff on board in after school program. We have not been as fortunate here to have teachers because they provide a value that is very difficult to learn for college students or someone who may not be in this profession. So it's really critical to get the certificated staff engaged. And as a result of the conversation I had with Mr. Weeks, he and I now understand that we want the same thing. He's very engaged. We're going to engage him. There's going to be some assistance because I asked him that when you identify a need, also be willing to help me make the program better, because all we want to do is make the program better for the students, correct? And so he's willing, we're willing, so going forward, we're going to work together, and that's going to be that district staff engagement in the partnership. And it's about developing better relationships with other providers in the district. You know, START has a great program. The Roberts Family Development Center has a right program. I think the relationships can get better so that we can serve the students and the families in a greater manner. And it's up to the adults to make sure that those relationships are built. Understanding the needs of the family, our program alignment with district education specifications, and creating access to all district unduplicated students is the goal. That's the end of my presentation. Any questions?
Questions?
I thought I could comment. Thank you for working with the teachers at Maine, because I do think that it sounds like it was very critical that we did that. And I would just like to learn a little bit more about exactly what the training looks like for the staff who are working with and overseeing our kids.
Okay, I can speak on it, or I can also give you a document, but giving an example, last week, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, 2 hours before the shift, we met at Maine, and I'm a leadership development consultant. I'm a retired assistant superintendent at Sac City Unified School District. I've been in education for most of my adult life. And so my training is focused on leadership skills, management skills of the classroom and the students. When students behave, how do you respond? And there's a curriculum that I work throughout the year. One of the things I've learned, if I give them 30 hours of training, as an example, in the summer, as the year goes on, that training is not effective. So I have broken it up into 2-hour increments where we do it on a recurring basis. But I'd be glad to provide the board that entire training curriculum. Okay. And, you know, one of the conversations I've had with staff, and I told them, be patient. Let me know when they do identify an issue, but also recognize that there's a big difference between a certificated teacher that's been in the classroom for 15, 16, 17 years and a college student that this may be his or her first job. And so we all need to be aware of there's going to be a difference, but we all can help out and engage in a positive way to make that more positive. And I think that's the climate that we now have at Maine. And I told the staff that I spoke with, I take responsibility for that, because last year I could have communicated better. But as I came in as a parallel program, I was not quite sure where that line was. This year, that line has dissipated, and so those connections are made. We'll make sure that those relationships continue to flourish.
Can you clarify, the folks in START and Roberts Family Development, they're not certified teachers. The START program has a teacher on site that helps, but the folks who oversee the after school program are not teachers, correct?
That is correct. START has academic alignment coaches, is that what they're called? Okay, so they have a staff member, I don't want to say on their payroll, with their program that meets they provide the academic piece. But you are correct, they are not certificated, yes,
Okay,
yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I understood that correctly.
Yeah.
That none of the staff working with after school programs are teachers.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Any additional questions or comments?
I have clarify when in disciplinary policies with all these 3 programs, since we provide the programs, do we have a record when kids get kicked out or disciplines and what really happened, what to bring to that issue? Do we have anything to?
I will have to get back with you. They might report concerns to the site, but the way we would know is if based on enrollment and when we do attendance, but we haven't documented whether they are not in the program due to discipline or just they choose to drop. So I can look at that.
You know, that actually brings up an additional question. Do we have sort of something in writing, kind of for lack of a better term, best practices or rules of the road for our after-school programs or those that we work with that provide additional after-school enrichment?
That is a great opportunity for us.
There you go. I like that. I like that.
It won't just be helpful for us. It'll
Yeah.
definitely be helpful for our teachers in the schools who are very concerned about our kids. So I think it'll be
Right.
helpful. And our parents as well.
You know, I will add, if there's an issue with a student or one of my staff members, and that's brought to my attention, I do a very thorough investigation. I write a report, and I give that report to the superintendent. So that's how I document it.
Well, I just think the reason why I brought it up is because I think it would be really good for both providers and for our staff and for families to know, all right, well, if something happens, this is kind of the process and how it should be handled, or at least these are the expectations. And I think that if we had something like that, then in particular as a new provider, when there are challenges, you know exactly what the expectations are, as opposed to, you doing it the way you see, the way you think is appropriate. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but the main thing is that we all understand expectations. And a lot of times when there is disappointment, it's usually because because of uncommunicated expectations.
I agree. I agree.
I just want to thank you for meeting with Mr. Weeks, and I know that he had some concerns, and he represented others that had some concerns in 3 hours. Sounds like a very long meeting, but also a good start. So just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you. And it was a great meeting. And all of his concerns were legit, and I told him they were legit. And I told him I take responsibility for not having a channel of communication where he could have felt comfortable coming directly with me, because some of the things he identified occurred last year, and we could corrected those things last year. We would have been a better organization this year. But to Mr. DeLuz's comments, sometimes it is an issue around expectations, how we're expected to behave. And so many times when certain staff members bring up an issue, I don't know the district's protocol on what direction that communication should go in. So last year, I chose not to engage, not knowing the policies. But this year, after speaking with the superintendent on several issues, we felt it was best that I took the initiative to engage, and it worked out extremely well with Mr. Weeks. And so we both learned that we both want the same things for the kids, and that's always a plus.
Any additional comments or questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all of our expanded learning providers for coming out and sharing with us. We appreciate the work that you do with our kids. All right, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Now we'll move on to action items. Item A, approve certificated assignments under a provisional internship permit for the 2024-25 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
So at the early August board meeting, we approved some additional individuals that were under a provisional internship permit, and then we hired someone past that date who will also require the same permit. It's for the same reasons. They have everything except a teacher professional preparation program, and they're working towards getting into one of those. But other than that, they come to us highly qualified, and this allows us to keep them in a teaching role. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item B, approve official pest prevention and antisemitics. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Company contract.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Issues with our pest control. We interview 3 companies and we select this company. Actually, they work with Twin Rivers and a Thomas School District. And we select, the main reason we select this company because they will be able to do work after school hours, like very early in the morning on the weekends, so the pest controls issues are solved. And so this is more, we will have a contract for each. This is a total, but we will have a contract for the 6 school size, each school plus preschool. So that way we track the work very specific, what is done at each school.
Did I pronounce
Yeah,
Antisemix right?
that's how
Okay.
it is. I don't know about that. Yeah, so
Okay, thank you.
yeah, that sounds right for me. So
All right, so thank you so much. All right, with that, any further discussion or debate? Move on to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Let's say pass 3-0-1. One abstention? Or do we want to do you want to wait? We'll wait. We're just going to do 3-0-1. And we'll move on to the next item. Approved service agreement with Pro Youth at Bell Avenue Elementary.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion?
There's actually no cost, but we like to have all contracts come to the board. This is a once-a-week program at Bell Avenue for about an hour, I think an hour to 2 hours for 12 weeks. So the counselor, Ms. Collins, will oversee the weekly sessions.
Any additional discussion?
You have me at no cost.
I like no cost.
And they pay the students, right, when they finish the thing?
$75.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Okay, any further discussion or debate? Hearing none, we'll move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Section 7, board member requests for future agenda items or reports. Trustee Cardona.
Nothing.
Trustee Hamilton, start.
I do want to ask a question about our cell phone policies, knowing that the governor has probably going to be putting on a ban on cell phones in schools. And so what's our policies around cell phones in schools?
I'm going to guess that CSBA will probably be putting out a sample policy here sometime relatively soon. That'll be consistent with the governor's, with the new law. So I would be looking for it, be my guess. Trustee Barnes?
None.
Okay, and I have nothing. And so with that, this meeting is adjourned.